In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chonam la shangju bardu dagni kapsuchi dagi jinsoki pe sonamgi drola penshir sangye ju pasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wadang de we gurdang dem par jorchi. Dug now dang dunal gi gudang dra wa jorchi. Dug now me pe de wadang mi dra wa jorchi. Ne ring jag dang ni dang dra we. Dang namla ne pa jorchi. Chak sa wa dang chak sing so pa dang. Jai su yi ren ko sing so wa yi. Ge wa jung ze da gi ji sak pa tam she so pe sang shu chen no. Whatever merit I've gathered through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Om Ahom. Okay, thank you all for coming again tonight. And I last week Kunga asked about the five Buddha families, and then Larry second that question and so on, and I think both Kunga and Larry were perfectly right to ask that question. So I've sent out a little bit of information for you all, and I got a discussion that we can have tonight specifically about that. So if you've got your the mandalas that I sent to you, did you receive those other mandalas, the fierce deity mandalas? Did you receive those in the mail? Good.
Yes.
Okay. If you got, we're not going to need that particular one handy, but we do have also the flow chart. I did a bit of a flow chart so you could see the family members in the flow chart. And I also sent through email. I don't think I printed it, but I did send a writing, a description of the five Buddha families. So yes, that's the flow chart. Larry's holding up the flow chart. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you. These are things that I've created out of to study these things. These things have helped me tremendously over the years to be able to organize. What the Sambhoga Gaya is. And because the Bardo Thodol is the display of the Sambhoga Gaya, as it applies to the transference going through the liberation process in the intermediate states and so on. So that's the benefit of this. And the Bardo Thodol is effective in all six Buddha realms, in all six of the Buddha realms. When we talk about the God realm, we talk about the jealous God realm, we talk about the human realm, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realm beings. It's effective in all those, and it's effective in all six of the bardos, in the living, and the dreaming, the sleep, the meditative concentration, the bardo of death, the bardo of reality, and the bardo of becoming. So it's effective in all of these different realms and so on, being able to understand what is going on because all this is being generated by human beings. The whole, it's a system, and we're being able to see symbolically how this energy manifests and how it actualizes in our lives and so on, and how we ultimately can control it. And that's the important thing. So we recite this, for someone who has passed or group of people who have passed and so on to help them by generating this energy, this light within ourselves, and from our heart to their heart, we're helping to guide them in that way. But just as important, it's helping us to understand the way in which this all operates, so that through the bardo of living, the bardo of dreams, and the bardo of meditative concentration, that we have something to really focus on, to work on, to be able to establish ourselves through the bardo of death, meaning that as we sit down on the cushion in a meditation, that we are going to go through a passage. We are going to go from what was our state of being, our state of mind, into now something that's going to be a little bit different because of whatever experience we may have while on the cushion and so on. So, in that respect, we are reborn. So, it's more dramatic when we talk about it, in the death process and a human being losing his life and so on like that. It's more dramatic that way. But the important thing is for us to be prepared for that by doing the meditation with the Bardo training and so on, what we're talking about. Does anybody have any comments or questions that you'd like to have covered in our discussion? Okay. Well, then, I'm just going to screen share a few things here first. So this here you can see is, whoops, I have to clean up my desk. There we go. So now we see that this is the the flow chart to which I was referring. So here we can see in the very top center is Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri are the primordial Buddha and consort. So they are in absolute nature, and they from them figuratively we see that the display of the phenomenal nature is their radiance, is their display. And then here's the Buddha family in the center. In the east is the Vajra family, south, west, and north. You see they're color coded to help us to remember. And the center would be white, blue in the east, and south would be yellow, west would be red, and north would be green. And then you see uh, the father and mother, if you will, the male and female Buddhas are expressed here, and then you see here are the bodhisattvas, the male and the female bodhisattvas. So we look at them as spiritual sons and daughters. And then in this mandala also would be the gatekeepers. So here we see the gatekeepers and their consorts. So this can help us very much in being able to understand the Buddha families. So let me see here. Okay. So now I want to be able to um, you know what? I forgot to do that. 1 second. I'm sorry. Let me see. Just give me a second here. Just give me a minute. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did do it. Here, there it is. Oh, that's not it. Okay. Okay. This is what I wanted to. So everybody has a copy of this except French. I'm sorry you don't have this French, but I'll send this to you. Um, so what we can see here is this is the mandala of the peaceful deities, of the 36 peaceful deities are shown here. So in the center is the Buddha family. Here is the family of Ascobia. Here is the family of Ratnasambhava. Here is the family of Padmasambhava. Or excuse me, this was Padmasambhava, and this is Ratnasambhava. This is Amitabha, and this is Amagoga City. So the thing that I want to draw our attention to are these red little paragraphs that I've written, these little groupings here, because this is really the important thing. So here, if I go once again, one more time. So here, if you look at this, so we see that what are the Buddhas and consorts really telling us? We talked about this briefly last week. I mentioned this, the purification of the five afflictive emotions, the five wisdoms, and the five benefits. So here, if you look in each of these sections, you will see that there is the afflictive emotion. So here, like in the Buddha family, we see that it's the afflictive emotion of delusion. Here in the blue family, we can see that it's the afflictive emotion of hatred. If you can turn sideways and you can look here, the Ratna family is the afflictive emotion of greed. And here, this is the afflictive emotion of desire, and this is afflictive emotion of jealousy. So these you may already be familiar with. We've studied these over the years and so on, and we've heard about these from our teachings and from the deity yoga that we've done and so on. So this is something that we should be familiar with. The next thing we should be familiar with also are the five wisdoms. So in the Buddha family, the five wisdom, or the first of the wisdom is the all-pervading wisdom of phenomenal reality, the all-pervading wisdom within phenomenal reality. Here in the blue family is the mirror-like wisdom, appearances we see, the appearances we see within that phenomenal nature. Then over here in the Ratnasambhava family, in the yellow family, we see the wisdom of equanimity or sameness. So we see that. These are the five wisdoms. In the red family, we see it's the wisdom of discriminating awareness, the phenomena here, we see this. So, and then in the green family and Amagog City family, it's the all accomplishing wisdom of the activities. So we see that these five Buddha families are symbolically representing the afflictive emotions or the purification of the afflictive emotions. What results are the five wisdoms that we just went through. And now the five benefits. What are the five benefits? So the five benefits start off with the Buddha family here in the center, and you see the benefit of the growth potential. So it's like a garden, a gardener who has all the skills and all the tools, all the seeds and everything that's necessary to grow the plants and so on that he needs. And so there is this growth potential. Everything is there. Now it all has to come together. So that's in the white family and the Buddha family. In the blue family and the Vajra family, it's the benefit of cohesion. All this coming together. And remember that this is symbolic, this blue family is symbolic of the water. And in the water is holding many, many things. If you could, put it under a microscope, you'd be able to see that there's many things being suspended in the water. So there's a cohesion within that water of all these different elements and so on like that. So nutritional things and etc. So it's through the benefit of cohesion that we see this family being activated, is working. In the yellow family, in the Ratnasambhava family, the jewel family, is the benefit of stability. That we're seeing this is the land, this is the earth, this is where we plant the garden and so on. The cohesion is bringing in nutrition through the watering, and here is the nutrition through the land itself, and to be able to take the roots and be able to support the plant that is about to grow and so on. Then over here in the red family is the benefit of ripening. The heat, the fire of the Padma family is the benefit of ripening, heating being the element that we need to have to be able to grow. We've got the water, we've got the earth, the soil, the nutrition, and now we've got the fire, the heat to be able to keep this warm. And then in the green family, Amigog City, in the karma family, we have the benefit of movement. That to be able to grow, that to have the space, to be able to do this, to be able to not be stunted. If we were to put something over the plant that we want to grow, we would retard its growth. It wouldn't grow to its full fruition. It may not flower. It may not be able to bear the fruit or the vegetables that we need. So we can use this as an analogy for our process of becoming aware, of becoming enlightened, becoming awakened, and so on. The process of going through the bodhisattva, becoming a bodhisattva, and then finally becoming a Buddha, and so on. So these are the five benefits of the Buddha family. So the Buddhas themselves, the male Buddhas, are like the light energy that is attracting the being that is attracting us. This is why perhaps we are joining in this kind of a discussion, this kind of a group, is because we are attracted by this intelligent light, by this spiritual light, whatever we want to, however we look at this, that we're being attracted and saying, oh, there's something there. This is lighting up the darkness that's in my life, that's illuminating, and I want to be that illumination. So, and then the consort is the female who has our back. And it's, from the standpoint of we're being birthed through the female aspect, through the mother aspect. We're being birthed through that. And it's the father who is guiding us through that whole process, through his ability to be able to actualize that wisdom that comes from the birthing, that comes from the mother aspect. So these are the Buddhas and consorts, the purification of the five afflictive emotions, wisdoms, and benefits. So this mandala helps us to be able to see this as a study guide. All this comes from the Bardo Thodol, comes from the commentaries and the practices that are expressed in there that we recite and that we study for our own benefit and so on, and we recite for the benefit of others. So now we come down to this group right here, which are the male bodhisattvas and then the female bodhisattvas. So the male bodhisattvas, first is the purification of the 8 classes of consciousness. So if we look here in this level here, so this level here, this inner level here, and if you look at it like a stupa, you look at it like a stupa, this is 3 dimensional. We're seeing it in 2 dimensions, but we look at it as a as in 3 dimensions. If you can see my picture, and I'm holding up our bell, the dilbu that we use all the time. And this is a 3 dimensional mandala that we can see. In the illustration on the page right here, we're seeing it in 2 dimensions. It's like this, but it's actually a 3 dimensional stupa. And in each of the levels, there are terraces and so on. There are plateaus, terraces like that. So we see this one at the very top. Then we see at this Buddha level here, we see at the top level would be the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and then the next level down would be the Bodhisattva level, this level here. So there's 4 levels here. So, or rather, there's 4 quadrants, 4 sections here. So the first of these would be Kasiti Garbha, who is,
Amadorja,
yes,
can I have a question?
yes,
When they do the sand mandalas, when the monks do those,
yes.
um, are they do those geometries match up to the 5 Buddha families, or do they have different geometries for depending on the particular mandala they're doing? Or are they following a certain pattern for all those mandalas, or are they different?
Yes, I think basically you're right. There are 5 Buddha families. They're usually segmented, and just like you see
Okay.
and then but then specific to whatever deity that mandala is being created, then there would be different aspects to the same mandala to represent, to be symbolic of those different bodhisattvas, associated Buddhas, and so on like that. So yes, this is a consistent way of being able to graphically demonstrate the Sambhogagaya in its practice and its actualization. And that's why if you look at those sand mandalas, if you happen to be there, you can see that they're not very big, but in terms of depth, but they do create a 3 dimensional image. They pile up the sand in certain places, so you can look at it, crossways, and you can see that there's a 3 dimensional aspect to it. Okay, so going back, so now we're at this bodhisattva level. So here we have Kasiti Garbha, and so the question was, or the issue is, the purification of the 8 classes of consciousness. So this one here that's being listed here is the visual consciousness. And then here's the bodhisattva Maitreya. This is the auditory consciousness, hearing, seeing. Then we go up to um, the um, the Ratna, and we see the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, which is the olfactory consciousness, smell. And then here is Akasha Garbha, which is the gustatory consciousness, the taste. So there's smell and taste that are being represented here. Then in the Padma family, we have Avalokiteshvara, that we're all familiar with, which is what is that? I can't read it. Is that taste? Tactile. Tactile. I'm reading it upside down. It's tactile, touching. And then here is the Bodhisattva Manjushri, and this is the mental consciousness. The mental consciousness is being represented here. And then we come, so this so far is 6. It was 2, 4, 6. Now we come to Amagog City's quadrant. This is the green. This is the karma section. And here we have Sarvanavarana Vishkaben, who is the ground of all consciousness. And then we have Vajrapani, who is the defiled consciousness, the kleshas, or the 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 I, me, mine, the ego consciousness. So, if you're not familiar with this, then there's 8 consciousnesses that we talk about. The first 5 are our ordinary senses of sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Then comes the mind, the lower mind that is processing those inputs from those sense organs that are reporting to the brain, that are telling the brain, oh, I see something, oh, I taste something, oh, I hear something, etc., and so on. And so the brain then is then processing that, and that's the mental consciousness that's being represented. I was up here by Manjushri, the wisdom, right? So you can start thinking about these things, start contemplating these, and see how these designations are have been determined through years and years, centuries and centuries, master after master of doing these practices, and seeing how this energy then transforms or materializes as these names come up, as they use these names to be able to articulate what these represent. And the more that you contemplate this, the more you think about this, the more you recognize it within yourself, you recognize it within everything around us, with all other beings and so on. So we're seeing this as a as a map, as a as a as a treasure map, and the treasure is the jewel, you know. So when we say Om Mani Padme Hum, the loose translation is behold the jewel in the lotus, and we recognize that first, we're visualizing that it's Avalokiteshvara that is the jewel in the lotus, but then we recognize that we are the jewel, we are Avalokiteshvara, we are all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, are all within ourselves. So this is a treasure map to help us to navigate through this whole process. So, so the first 5 was our senses. The 6th one is our brain that is processing the input that come from those senses. And then the 7th one, the 7th consciousness, is the I, me, mine, is the ego consciousness, the awareness of oneself and being able um, to manipulate all this power, all this life force that we have, and how it is that we manipulate it, how it is that we control this, and so on, both for in our dualistic nature. So it can be a positive, it can be a negative, you know. And what we're trying to do is to recognize that all coming together as bliss in this emptiness. We're trying to recognize that. We're trying to see this. So the thing that holds us back, so to speak, is the next one is the 8th consciousness, which is the all accomplishing, or the all, how does it say here, the ground of all consciousness. This is the karma consciousness. This is the baggage that we're carrying. This is like the soul. When we're carrying the results of our lives, we're carrying all these results and so on with us, and they're holding us down. We're carrying this bag around on our shoulders. If you remember the illustration in the 12 in the 12 links of interdependence, that the last of the segments is the old person who's carrying this sack with him and so on. And what we're trying to do as practitioners, as yogis, as bodhisattvas on the path, is to remove all those karmic connections that are on our in our bag. We're trying to lighten our load. We're trying to cut ourselves off through the process of purification from all these things that weigh us down, that hold us back, and so on. So we take this, and as long as we're holding on to this, you see, it continues to wear us down. What we're trying to do is to attain the level of freedom, the level of awakening, the level of enlightenment, the level of samadhi, the king of samadhi, of being able to let all of this go, to put this bag down, and to be able to be now the entire what we call phenomenal nature, but in the sense of the absolute, but in the awareness, the awakeness of the absolute. In other words, becoming at one with the primordial Buddha, what we call the primordial Buddha. So, of course, this is a symbolic representation, you know, and this is non-conceptual, non-dual, and so on. So this, so this is a map, a guide, how we navigate through this. So we have the eight consciousnesses that are being identified by these eight great bodhisattvas. These are the eight great bodhisattvas. And maybe you've heard that term. You can look it up, you know, in your books, or you can look it up in Gemini or some other AI or something like that will help you. There's a lot written about this and so on. Um, I'm going to look and print the sutra that goes and reveals this. And that would be something that we'll talk about in the not too distant future if you'd like to. So, this is the purification of the eight classes of consciousness. So, in order to get to this primordial nature, this Samantabhadra, we need to purify all this phenomenal nature, all this phenomenal stuff that's holding us back. So the female bodhisattvas now are the purification of the four sense objects and the four phases of conceptual thought. The four sense objects and the four phases of conceptual thoughts. So over here, so in the front and the back. So we're visualizing that on either side of the male and the female deity in the center, to the right is one of the bodhisattvas, the male bodhisattvas. To the left is the other male bodhisattva. But then in front would be one of the female bodhisattvas. And to the back is the other female bodhisattva. So these are identified here. So here we see in the center is Ascobia. And then in this section right here, was somebody trying to say something? Okay. So here in front would be Lasya, Lasya, the visual phenomena, and whose beauty, this visual, this she symbolizes this beauty. And then behind would be Pushpa, Pushpa, the past conceptual thoughts. And here are flowers are used to identify that. So the visual phenomena and then the past conceptual thoughts. So we're going to come back and see how these all fit together. So then here in Ratnasambhava in front is Malya, Malya, which is the garland, the like the beads, the mala beads, which is the indeterminate conceptual thoughts, indeterminate conceptual thoughts. Indeterminate. Where do they come from? It's indeterminate. We can't tell. We don't know. But there are thoughts there and so on. So Pushpa was the past conceptual thoughts, those we can identify as being past. Indeterminate means there's no time involved. It's just indeterminate. Then the visual phenomena was Lasya. And back over here in the yellow family is Dupa, And this is the fragrance. This is incense. Um, this is the purification or the protection that comes from um, that comes from uh, the olfactory comes from the olfactory consciousness. So another way of looking at this is that these thoughts are like thought forms, and then with the female, it is the objects of those forms. What the objects of those forms. So here we have incense. Here we had a garland. We had flower. We had the beads. We had flowers. Here we have the visual phenomena of beauty. There we had the flowers themselves with the past. Then we go to the red family, and we see Aloka, which is the I gotta flip this around. How do I do that? Okay, now I can see. Avalokiteshvara, or rather, I'm sorry, we're in talking about the female. So here we have Amitabha, and we have Gita. Gita is the sound, is a song, and this is the object of our consciousness. And then Aloka is the future conceptual thought. So we had the past thoughts, we had indeterminate thoughts. Here we have future thoughts, and here we have sound, we have song. So these are the objects of our consciousness, and then we come down here to um, Amagoga City, and we have Ganda in front, which is the present conceptual thoughts, and behind is Narti, the taste, the food, the object of food, of nutrition, of being able to feed ourselves, being able to support ourselves, and so on, to feed the fire, so to speak. So this so these were the conceptual thoughts. So let me, how was that explained again? Kunga, can you tell me, you got this in front of you, I presume. Do you have this on the paper in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It says
Well,
female bodhisattvas represent the purification of the four sense objects and the four phases of conceptual thought.
right. The four phases of conceptual thought we just went through, and the other one was
Four sense objects,
the
which
four
are
sense objects.
visual and taste
Right.
and smell.
Right. So you can see how that is demonstrated and so on. So then the next point is um,
I'm surprised that tactile sense is not represented.
here it is. You mean in terms of touch and the female aspect?
Yeah, I just thought there were four, so that was I just saw smell, taste, um, hearing, but I didn't see touch.
Well, that could be the incense. I mean, it could be all of them. You know, have a physical aspect to them. It's a fair question. It's a good question. I don't have a good answer right now. I'll have to think about that a minute.
It's an Avalokiteshvara.
Avalokiteshvara is the tactile.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
touch.
it's touch, but he's talking about a touch object. Is that what you're
Mm.
talking about? A touch object?
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
Well,
Well,
think of your favorite lover. Okay. So then, all right, so now we've covered the male bodhisattvas, the female bodhisattvas. So now we come to the gatekeepers. So the gatekeepers are like are literally like these porches on each one of these four quadrants. It's like a porch that you either, if you're coming from the bottom up, you're approaching this mandala from this gateway, from this gate at each one of these quadrants. Or if you are if you're in the bardo of reality and you're going through this process from the top down, the person has died, their spirituality, their spiritual body has been released, and now they're going through these phases of the bardo, and they're in the bardo of reality, and it's a question of whether they can remain in the bardo of reality. Do they have the power to be able to do that? Do they have the resolve? Do they have the freedom to be able to do that? Because that's what this is. This Bardo of reality is the essence of that freedom. It is the non-conceptuality. It is the non-duality, so and so on like that. So all these preconceived ideas. But if we are trying to get a body, if we're not prepared for that degree of freedom, we want to have a body again. We want to be born again. We're not purified enough to remain in this freedom. So we say, we're thinking, our mind starts generating thoughts and so on, and images and these different objects, all these different things. And we're falling further and further away from this center, from this freedom. So the gatekeeper can close the gate to keep us in the bardo of reality. So this is within ourselves. So can we close the gate? Can we remember? Can we recall the lessons, the teaching, the symbology of the gatekeeper to keep us to be, I now remember, I'm Buddha. Why do I want to go away? If you're meditating on the cushion and thoughts arise in your mind, why am I paying attention to these thoughts? Why am I not going back to my meditation? And the true definition of the meditation is that not being attached, of being liberated from your thought and so on. And then how much power do you have to be able to come back into that true meditation away from all that mental thought and so on? So the gatekeeper has this role of either closing the door to keep us in the bardo of reality, or if we're approaching from the bottom up, to allow us to come forward, to come into the center, or to block us from coming in because you're not pure enough, because you don't know, you haven't experienced what the things leading up to this will be. So for that, we need to have the next talk about that with the wrathful, fierce deities. Talk about that, represent that. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep us not to get to that point. These are the peaceful deities. It would be wonderful to be here because of the purification, because of the pacification, because of the enrichment, because of the subduing, the magnetism, and the challenging. Remember, these are the five these are the five purifications of the five afflictive emotions, the five wisdoms. That these were the five. How do we express it? The five enlightened activities of the Buddhas. So here, if you look back in here, we didn't mention it today. So here, like in the Buddha realm, in the Buddhist center, Varanchana represents the teaching. Akasadhattvasvara is the space in which that teaching occurs. Here, Ascobia is the mindfulness. Then Ratnasambhava is the generosity. and Amitabha is the meditation, and Amagogsiddha is the um, is the dauntlessness, the ability, the unimpededness to be able to go in any direction, anywhere. So we express this in terms of the activities again of um, the pacification, of the enrichment, of the subduing, magnetizing, and um, of the challenging. These were the four enlightened activities of these Buddhas. All right, so coming back here, so this is explained through the gatekeepers. So now we're at the Vajra family. We're at this gate here. The male gatekeepers, the purification of the habitual tendencies. So the habitual tendencies. So here we may have been able to understand the poisons of the greed and the ignorance and the jealousy and so on like that. We may have been able to overcome that. We may have been able to transcend that to be able to get past that. But still, there are these residuals. There are these remainders, these habitual tendencies that we have that will creep into our lives, and we probably have experienced that. Wow, you say, I'm, you know, I think of myself as a Buddhist, but still I have, these kinds of thoughts, and they haven't gone away completely and so on. How do I deal with this? So this is being able to call out those thoughts, to be able to see the causes of those thoughts to help us because they're very, 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 very subtle. These are the habitual tendencies. So the four extreme views. So last week I mentioned very quickly the extreme views. The first is of on one axis is nihilism, and on the opposite end of that axis is eternalism.
Eternalism.
What's that? You said eternalism? Yes. So there's nihilism on one axis, and on the other axis, on the other side of that axis, is the eternalism. How much time do we think about you know those two things? How does that work in our lives? The other the other axis now is egoism or individualism on one side of the axis, and the other side is materialism or substantialism. So these are the four extreme views. And where do we move in that? Sometimes we might be towards the nihilist side, sometimes towards the eternalist side, sometimes toward the egocentric side, and sometimes toward the material side. But we've learned from the Buddha that there's a middle way to be able to navigate through all this, not to let ourselves go to these extremes and so on. So the male gatekeepers are the inquisitors of this. How much of this, where are you? Are you in the center of this, or are you drifting at any given time in any one of these four extreme views so that you can learn to control yourself? And then the four acts of enlightened activity, are the pacification that we talked about and so on. So here are the gatekeepers. So Trailokya, here is the eternalism. This is the purification of eternalism and the purification of pacification. So we're coming to intellectual terms with what this is that results in freedom. If we can intellectually understand it and so on, then we have the ability to be able to control it. So whether we're coming from the top down or we're coming from the bottom up, are we forming a mental body because we're falling away from freedom, or are we trying to approach that freedom, but we're still contaminated by these habitual tendencies? So the extreme views or the enlightened activities are the keystones on which we are able to examine these things. Uh, okay, so now we come to the next view. This is the yellow quadrant, Ratnasambhava, the Ratna family, the jewel family, and here in the at this gatekeeper is Yamantaka, and he is representing the nihilism and the enrichment. So the nihilism is, there's a huge ignorance that might be associated with that nihilism. Oh, all that stuff, it's all hocus pocus, it doesn't matter, and so on. But through the enrichment of teaching, of learning, of practicing, and so on, we begin to recognize that there's other stuff going on. When we go back to the Blue family and we talked about here was pacification and was eternalism. Eternalism is that, oh, it's all okay. We're all going to live forever. We're going to be saved by the supreme being, whatever that is, and we don't need to worry about everything. And so that we need to be able to learn pacification by taking personal responsibility for those things that we're saying, oh, God's going to take care of us. Oh, we don't have to worry about this because everything works out in the end anyway. So pacification needs to be understood and clarified in the face of the eternalism. Nihilism needs to be enriched through the process of teaching and so on. Of course, teaching is consistent through all these things. Pacification is the same thing with all these things. But these are being able to be characterized by these peaceful deities so that we have a system by way to uniquely understand each one of these things. But they're all interconnected. None stands by itself exclusively. They're all interconnected. So this is an important feature of understanding the Sambhogagaya, of understanding the Bardo Thodol. So, so I'll continue with the male. So now I'll come to the Padma family, and we're at the the gatekeeper here, and this is Hayagriva, and Hayagriva is represents the egoism and the subjugation of the ego. That makes a whole lot of sense. So are we closing the door or are we opening the door based on our understanding of these four enlightened activities and the four extremes? So these things they can be very, very, very subtle. And this is working at a very subtle level. This is the habitual tendencies. And then I'm going to come back. So now in the green family, the karma family. So now we have Amrita Kundalin, who is representative of the substantialism or materialism, and the wrath aspect, the wrath meaning that fierceness, not the hatred, not the wrath of hatred. It's the fierceness of digging into it. It's not taking it at face value. It's digging into an inner meaning. It's digging into an inner cause. Are we going to be satisfied with just saying, oh, I got this covered. This is all cool. I understand all this. Or are we going to go deeper into this and say, wow, there's still something that is here that needs to be dug out, that needs to be brought up, that needs to be enlightened, um, that needs to be cut off. So yes. So, so this substantialism, this wrathfulness, is this fierceness to be able to dig this out. So these are the five gatekeepers, the five male gatekeepers. Then the female gatekeepers. Then we come. Um, so these are the purification of the four types of birth and the four aspirations of bodhicitta. So the four types of birth, I think everybody's going to be familiar with: egg birth, womb birth, heat and moisture, and miraculous birth. The miraculous birth is kind of abstract and is and bears a little bit more understanding and acceptance. It's stated in some of the books as being the miraculous birth is when the gods fall from heaven because of um, um, their the eventuality of their demise, of their death, and they fall to the lower realms. They fall to the hell realm in particular because of this miraculous birth process and so on. It's dramatically explained that way. But there is a miraculous birth of going from the hell realm to whatever realm that a person in the hell beings could go to when they are able to purify themselves. Can they go to the human realm? Can they go to the God realm, to the jealous God realm, etc.? So, and this is typified by the point of the lotus born. This was the great symbology of Padmasambhava, the lotus born, and that we should be born again on a lotus. When we talk about Om Mani Padme Hum, the jewel of the lotus, being born on the lotus being that regenerative process of coming from the defilement, but being able to cleanse ourselves, to be able to purify ourselves and remain in nirvana rather than in samsara. We all come from that filth of samsara into that. So that's a miraculous process to be able to do that. So here we have, in the East, we have Ankusa, the female bodhisattva Ankusa. So she represents the miraculous birth and compassion. So the four aspirations of bodhicitta are loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and sameness or equanimity. So she represents miraculous birth and compassion. Then the next one is Pasa, and she represents the womb birth and loving kindness. And then the next one is Spota, egg birth, and empathetic joy. Empathetic joy. Maybe we talked about this, but the difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy has a pitying quality about it. That, you see someone who is suffering or is happy, and you have a sympathy with them in that they are overcoming, that they are suffering in some way, or they're overcoming the suffering. The empathy is more not associating yourself with them. There's no, it's only that you're recognizing the freedom, you're recognizing the happiness, you're recognizing the joy that we all share, and that we don't have any relationship to that at all. We don't necessarily have to have a relationship to that. We can have a relationship, but it's not necessary. It's like seeing a stranger help another stranger across the street, who needs a guiding hand or something like that. You don't know those people, but you see that, and there's an empathy for that. It's not a sympathy for that, there's an empathy for that. So it's a fine distinction, and something that's worthy of looking up and trying to understand. So Spota represents the egg birth and the sympathetic joy. Then the next one is Ganta, and this is heat and moisture and uh, the birth process, heat and moisture and birth. Let me see. This would be a womb birth. Yeah, this would be womb birth. So, where did this get there? Now, wait a minute. Heat and moisture. Yeah, something got cut off here. I'm sorry about that. So this would be heat and moisture, and this would be. So we talked about womb birth, talked about egg birth. Here was womb birth, yeah. And then so the other birth, oh, this was the miraculous birth. This was the miraculous birth. Somehow or another that got cut off. So this would be miraculous birth here in this in for Ganta. So these are the female gatekeepers, the aspiration of bodhicitta, and the four types of birth. So this would be like a testing to either close the gate to keep the mental body, the spiritual body, if you will, in the bardo of reality, or to open up and allow the spiritual body who is coming up from the bottom up to pass through, or to keep them out and say, you need to study a little bit more. You need to understand this more. You need to not just study, you need to become the embodiment of this more. That's the difference. It's not just an intellectual process, it is the process that leads to that freedom of the intellect, the bringing the intellectual mind and the heart mind into an equalness, into a sameness between the two, where it becomes that one mind that is best characterized as the absolute. So please, does anybody have any comments or questions? What happened here? Did I knock myself out? No, I'm still there. Where am I? All right, let me. All right. Any comments or questions?
I have a question about in the green area.
Yeah.
You were talking about the karmic influence.
Yes.
So what's the interplay between past lives versus things that are happening right now or happened recently? And I guess I'm going off on a karma tangent here, but th things that we experience, for example, in our childhood or that other people do to us. Um, what's the interplay between our karmic actions and those of other people that we've experienced?
It's whatever we make it. It's our attachment to that. Are we, and that's the point, you know, are we, literally, are we ignorant of it? Are we attached to it? Do we have hatred for it? Which of the five poisons is the cause of that attachment, of that thinking about that, of seeing that as something that is separate rather than it's just who we are, what it was we were, and there's nothing we can do about it anymore. So I'm just going to let go of it. So I think that's the answer that I would have for that. That we create these attachments. All this is manifested through our activities as a human being, what it is that we are doing. And it's up to us to learn how to be able to control those causes and those conditions. The conditions arise, and we may have the causes. And can we say, I'm not going to play that game anymore? I'm just going to stop. So it really is that simple in the end. But to get there, it's complicated because we have all these rationales and so on. But what this study is helping us to do is to recognize what all the interplay is. And if we keep in mind, if we put something right in front of ourselves, freedom is the goal. You know, anything short of that, anything that speaks other than that, we're being pulled into the confusion. We're being pulled out of the freedom and into the samsaric existence. So we have to look at each and everything like that. So whether it's the karma, the kleshas, the result of the karma that we've created for ourselves, the emotions, or it's the mental misconceptions, thinking, oh, I'm a human being, I'm great in all this, and I don't need any of this other stuff. I'm great all on my own. Or is it that you've overcome those two levels of thought, but it's the habitual tendencies that are still dragging you back, those things that are those subtleties that are still there. So I hope that sheds a little bit of a light on your question, but freedom is what we're looking for. And
Thank you.
anything else gets in the way is what we have to work on. That's where the purification is. Gunga?
Yeah, I just wanted to say my understanding about that question too. So my understanding is that the experiences you have in your life, from your environment, those are all related to behaviors and experiences that you've yourself put into play. So if you're having experience with someone and you feel like they're treating you in a unskillful way, my understanding is that you're receiving the fruit of this karma that in the past you have treated someone else in an unskillful way. Now, how you react in that present moment is going to determine what the karma is going forward. If you, in turn, when they act unskillfully towards you, you in turn respond or react unskillfully back, then you're just continuing that karma cycle and you're just going to continue to have those types of experiences. But if you're able to meet that negative behavior with a skillful behavior that does not promote it, then you're kind of you're stopping that future from repeating itself over and over. So like Tema Dorjo is saying, it's really this idea about not playing the game anymore. And also accepting responsibility. So you're basically accepting responsibility for anything that happens to you is your own responsibility. And how you react to it or how you interact with it is also your own responsibility. So you are, like, in a way, you're all powerful. And you can choose to act in a way that's going to move you towards freedom, as Pema Dojo is saying, or a way that just continues the cycle of samsara, so you continue to have these kind of conflicting, suffering behaviors going forward. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else have any thought about that or another comment about this? This is a discussion group, so trying to drag it out of you a little bit.
I'm wrestling with what we were talking about because I imagine, like, I'll just make something up, like a 10-year-old autistic kid that's being gang bullied in school. And like the idea that somehow he brought this on himself is kind of hard to swallow. At the same time, I think it's tremendously beneficial if whatever we've experienced in our lives, if we can, not if we can follow Kunga's advice, right? I think that that's more helpful than living in this victim mentality, right? Where you're constantly looking to strike back and get revenge and being depressed because of something bad happened to you. So those are just some of the stream of consciousness that I'm wrestling with right now.
It's a fair question. I mean, it's a very pertinent question, very important question, and it becomes a stumbling block in a lot of people's minds. How do they justify, this whole karmic thing, and people falling, the airplanes falling, and how did 245 people die all at one time that didn't know each other, and all these kinds of things? How does this karmic process happen, and so on? And you know, and to be attached to trying to figure that out really doesn't solve the problem. Those people, they've got their problems, no doubt. You've got your problems. The only thing you can fix is your problems. You know, it may sound cruel to say, oh, well, I can't care about those people. You have compassion for them. You would do anything you could to help them in any way you can. And that's why we recite the Bardo Thodol, for instance, or any of these practices that we do is so we're doing it for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. So all the minutiae of all the details for a human being is just totally overwhelming. There's no way to be able to fathom that out. Some people would say, oh, it takes a Buddha to be able to understand all these things. Well, is that not a attribution that they would make with God? God knows everything. God knows all this, and God is wrathful, and God is holy, and God is beautiful, and all this kind of stuff. But isn't that a similar kind of thing? You know, there's an element there that we have to say of unattachment, of letting it go, and just going for the freedom. Does
Okay,
that
if
make?
I could,
Yeah,
uh,
please, Bernie.
I could say when the subject comes up of karma, and
And Kunga
I
raises his.
think
We'll
it's
get back to Kunga in a minute. Let Bernie speak.
I okay, I think it's more helpful to think of karma instead of thinking of karma in terms of punishment, to think of it as a lesson that you need to learn because there in life you learn more from the difficult situations that you're able to face than you learn from when life is easy and comfortable and everything. I can say from my own life that the important changes that have come in my life have been the result of the various troubles that I've been through, and I think that's true for a lot of people as well. So when we think of, you should not think of karma just in terms of punishment, or you're being punished for things that you've done in the past. Rather, you should think of it as I didn't learn a lesson in the past, and now I'm having an opportunity to learn a lesson and become a better person as a result of it. And whatever problem that might be that you're facing, I think can be faced in that way. Everything in life is an opportunity to learn something new. And whether it's some sort of disease or whatever, or some sort of bullying or anything, you can learn from these things. So try to think of karma in that sense and not in the sense that you're getting what you deserve. So
Kunga,
that's it.
thank you.
Oh,
Kunga?
so yeah, I like that, Bernie. I like that a lot. And I agree with that completely. And I would, as far as your example, Brendan, with the child being bullied, I think that part of our responsibility as other human beings is to help prevent that situation from happening as well. That's part of our responsibility as, our skillful responsibility. We would never look at someone suffering and say, oh, that's their karma, so I'm just going to sit back and let them work it out. I mean, we're interconnected with that person, and if we know that experience is going on, then we should be doing our best to alleviate the suffering for everyone involved, and not think that that's something that person needs to do by themselves. None of us do anything by ourselves. We're completely dependent on all the causes and conditions of our life. So in that particular situation, we are one of the conditions of that experience, that can help prevent that person from suffering. And then we definitely like obligated to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything you'd like to add?
It just occurs to me too that sometimes the people behaving in such an unskilled manner, like the bullies, for example, you know, what's going on in their heads, right? What's going on with their karma? That we were talking about a certain elected official who will remain unnamed, and how, when you exhibit certain tendencies that actually is there's a lot of turmoil within yourself that you would live your life in that unskillful a way. So just a thought. Sometimes the victimizers are victims themselves.
Well, indeed, one of the illustrations is, we're all sick. We all have this illness of life or whatever, and that's why the first, activity of the Buddha becoming enlightened is as the physician, to heal oneself and to do what they can to help others heal themselves. Because as we pointed out, we're not living in a vacuum, that if there's suffering around me, I'm going to suffer too. It's the degree of how you hold on to it that makes the difference, the Buddha could see suffering, but yet it didn't affect his enlightenment because he knew how to be able to work with that suffering and be able to help those who were causing suffering for themselves and potentially for him. But he was cured of that. He was not there, So maybe an analogy might be, you're a parent and your kid comes home crying because he's got bullied. Well, do you break down crying yourself? Or do you start kicking in with advice, how this happens, how you can fix it, and so on like that, what the causes are, all that kind of stuff, instead of, having that sympathetic joy or that sympathetic compassion and it just wrecking you. You're able to maintain your level of understanding of the situation. So, does this seem helpful to you? I mean, in recognizing what this mandala is all about, what the peaceful deities are all about, can you see that this is a process and that we are intellectually investigating this, but yet there needs to be that personal, that meditative, one-pointed mindfulness experience of being able to to have the embodiment of these 36 peaceful deities together with the other deities that we haven't even started talking about yet. So I got a few questions, maybe, do you see, the treasure map? Do you recognize yourself as the Bardo? Do you recognize yourself as the treasure? Do you see these things? Do you recognize yourself in phenomenal nature, but at the same time, with no time at all, do you see yourself as absolute? Do you see yourself as inseparable with these things that this intellectualization is all part of being a human being? And that's why we're a human being, is to recognize these things, that being a human being is to be in this experience, to have this experience of recognition. I mean, that's, I think, pretty abstract. Well, what do you think of that? I'm going to ask French. He hasn't said anything tonight. French, what do you think about that? Of being inseparable with this phenomenal nature, with this absolute nature. And we're just coming to grips with it with our intellect. What do you think of that?
I try not to think about it too much. I
Why?
I'm working on less thinking. I've been a thinker all my life. And in my experience, my own experience, I do better when I can let go of thoughts. I do understand all of, the approach of this, and I quite enjoy it. And I see, of course, in each of the 5 Buddha families, I can see, elements that are clear in my own nature. My mind has a tendency to, objectify all these ideas and thoughts rather than have a feeling awareness of, them being sort of sensing them in me. I sense myself in other ways, but I don't, what shall I say? I don't call up images and names of, these figures. All of these figures I recognize, and I find them all very, very completely recognizable, like friends, and including the so-called fierce deities. I've seen them, all my life, or most of my life, and I just find them all as friends, as wonderful, beautiful things. So um, that's really all I have to say.
Well, I think I understand it. I think I relate to what you say in this stage in my life anyway. I feel like, it's time to be Buddha. It's time to let go. But on these occasions, when we get together like this and with other groups that we're part of, there's a time to engage also. But I don't, I'm not attached to it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And to have that sense of liberation, to have that sense of freedom, to have that sense of not having to dig into all these different things is very real, and that's part of the when we talk about the definitions of samadhi. That's one of the definitions of samadhi, to to stop conceptual elaboration, because when you do that, you risk getting involved in attachment and arguments and things like that.
It's a heaven devoutly to be wished for. Stopping
So,
conceptual thoughts.
yes, you know, we have enough going on, but at the same time, that's the work we do is that's the purification process of being on the path that we are on, and where are we on the on a bodhisattva level, you know. In some cases, we may not be as high as we want to be, but in other cases, we may be higher than we think we are.
It's it's an aim, a goal, and a wish and an intention. Yes.
Anybody else have a comment or question? I mean, what do you think about I mean, do you think of yourself in phenomenal existence? Do you look at this and wonder, what all this is? Bernie, what do you think?
Well, I think I got a lot of information overload tonight. It's really a lot to take in. Uh, so, what do I think about conceptualization and
No,
identifying with?
about being in phenomenal nature. Do you think of yourself in terms of being phenomenal?
Well, he can't help but being in phenomenal nature. We're all in phenomenal nature. Now, as far as appreciating it, appreciating your phenomenal nature, that really comes down to accepting everything that you experience with gratitude. I think that's what really means being in a phenomenal nature. I mean, from a practical standpoint, appreciating and learning from everything single experience in your day. And that's how you approach life, and I think in a positive manner. Uh, I mean, life throws a lot of obstacles at it. I'm not pretending everything in life is wonderful and beautiful and love and light, but you just take it as it comes, and you just try to appreciate what's there every day, and feel some sense of gratitude just for being able to experience it. I think that's the important approach to take.
Thank you. Do you see that in this phenomenal existence and trying to understand, the
Oh, you mean understanding things like in terms of Buddhist philosophy? Yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful. What's helpful is I find what's most helpful is being able to approach. Uh, I don't know. I was going to use the word impersonal, but that's not quite the right word. You can keep sort of you can look at your experience more objectively. When all these emotions arise with you, you say, "Oh, that's anger again. That's anger." And anger is such and such. It's one of the kleshas, and it represents it represents what it represents. Now they talk about pure perception in Buddhism, but seeing all phenomena that arise as a manifestation of the deities. Deities in this term being Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I really can't say that I have a firm understanding about what pure perception actually means. And I would appreciate if somebody could give their suggestions on it. But the idea is that everything that you experience is in some sense sacred, and in some sense reveals the Buddha nature. Everything is an expression of Buddha nature, and that's a bit harder to understand. It's easier for my mind to think of things as being essentially empty. That means that there's no ego involved with anything. But to take a step beyond that and to say that they're actually not only just not ego, but but the Buddha themselves, that's a bit harder to understand. So that's where I stand on all that right now. I hope I answered your question right. A lot of the questions right tonight are kind of open-ended, and they don't have really like cut and dried answers.
Well, that's right, because everybody's
making
experiencing
pottery.
this in their own way, and as it was said, in the very beginning of my Buddhism training was my Buddha is as good as your Buddha, and that's the point, that we're all seeing this through our own lens. There are many similarities that we share and so on, but your experience is just as valid as my experience, in terms of the vicissitudes of the life that we go through and so on. How we explain it, we're all on this Buddhist or this Dharma path to try and articulate what that is. And how useful is this? That's what I'm really trying to get to is, do you find this to be a valid tool of exploration to be able to understand something that we haven't been able to understand, very well? And the question of perception, I think that we, at some level, at all levels, we have a degree of perception. And as we get what we might say more free, not more concentrated, but more free, that perception becomes broader but non-specific, unless you want to tune into something. And like French said, if I can paraphrase, I don't need to tune in right now. I'm just trying to just relax and be free and be happy and be satisfied and so on, and to accept what's going on. So the perception that becomes the right path at a certain time in our lives. I mean, that's my experience in the past number of years was, okay, I perceive that now it's time for me to enjoy, to be liberated as much as I can be liberated. I'm not trying to say that I'm a perfectly realized Buddha. No, I'm not, as much as I'd like to be, but the fact that I want to be, you see, is indicative of the fact that I'm not ready yet. you know, but there's a perception. You see, there's a perception that we are part of something, and that to allow that to manifest in whatever ways. Sometimes wisdom just comes right out of us. Sometimes it's just crap, you know, and but it's just part of the process.
It was just like funny.
So please, somebody else make a comment.
Lance, you remind me of the Zen master who was confronted by a sword-wielding samurai. Have you all heard this story? And the samurai ordered him on his feet, and he said, "Don't you know I have the power to kill you?" And the Zen master said, "Don't you know I have the power that I don't care?"
Yeah, yeah.
I'll say that we're having kind of an existential conversation right now that Bernie was just commenting on, and there's some physicists and other scientists that believe that we live in a simulation. And I don't know if we do or not, but I can't imagine a better worldview and philosophy than Buddhism for, digesting that, if that's the case, or because of its lack of rigidity.
Yeah, we're seeing a play.
Yeah.
We're in a play.
I was reminded of a quote from Emerson. He says, "Let me never fall into the vulgar mistake of dreaming that I am persecuted whenever I am contradicted. And I think that there's a lot of persecution complexes right now. And as Buddhists, we're able to avoid that. I mean, we have the tools to try to avoid that. Um, there's constant outrage right now, and I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking in general. So I think Buddhism gives us the ability to kind of take a step back and take our ego out of it and say, hey, why am I really being so offended by that? I mean, so just a thought.
All right. I'd like to, unless somebody else has something you want to say, I want to bring this back now to the Bardo Thodol and to the practice of the Bardo Thodol. We lost our friend Mark last week or so, 10 days ago, 12 days ago. So we've been reciting the Bardo Thodol for him. And I've done it many times. And every time I'm always learning, I'm always experiencing something different with it. And that to me is the gift that whomever I'm reciting this for is leaving a gift for me and for anybody else, and it's different for everybody else of what you discover in the practice. So the vehicle that really makes this happen is the mantra. And throughout the mantra, or throughout the text, we're reminded that of our meditational deity, whoever it may be. So it could be Jesus Christ, could be Moses, could be Allah, could be Krishna, could be Buddha. It could be any one of the meditational Buddhas and everything, because it says it's your meditational deity, whoever that may be. And so we recite the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, talks about the 6 syllables any number of times throughout the whole text and so on. So by engaging in the recitation of the mantra is really powerful. And it came to me, well, why not, let's go back to Gajah Rinpoche, because in my experience right now, I regard Gajah Rinpoche as the purest of the pure living beings right now. And that's not to diminish anybody else, any other of the great masters and so on, but he's one that I have a connection with, being in this lineage and so on like that. So listening to him and chanting along with him has been absolutely wonderful. When I finish doing the Bardo Thodol practice, um, I'm kind of spacey for the rest of the day. It affects me, and that's what we're looking for. There's a freedom there. I become the embodiment of the Bardo Thodol. And so this needs, I think it's important to note this so that we engage in that, and if you're by yourself, to engage in it by yourself. And isn't that what the practice is all about? After all, Siddhartha Gautama went for 6 years into the woods and to a cave and so on, and was consuming his body in the process and lost the power to be able to do that. But when he revived himself, he was able to get back to the meditation, and he was able to then go right into the meditation and have the result that he was looking for, which was freedom. So what mantra he was reciting or something, who knows? But nevertheless, as he taught, he began to teach, he began to channel these great deities. So at this point, having said this, I think it would be great for us now to spend 3 mala rounds. How much time do we have? 2 mala rounds, and be able to recite this together with Gajah Rinpoche, and maybe you'll appreciate what I'm saying, at least sympathize with me, if nothing else. Maybe there'll be some empathy. Can you all hear that? You can hear that? It's too low? It wasn't loud enough?
No, I couldn't hear it.
All right. Well then, all right. Well then we'll do it together, and I'll have to call it up. I'll have to bring it up, but I don't want to spend the next few minutes having to do that. But let's recite together if you've got your beads, and if you can close your eyes, and you can visualize the syllables Om Mani Padme Hung circling around a clear light Shri syllable, the primal cause, and each one of the syllables, the Om is white light, the Ma is green light, the Ni is yellow light, the Pad is blue light, the Me is red light, and the Hung is dark blue light, almost black blue light that is going to the gods, the white going to the gods, the green going to the demigods, the yellow going to the humans, the blue going to the animals, the red going to the hungry ghosts, and the dark blue going to the hell beings. All this light being generated by the pure, clear light of the Shri at the center, the Shri. And we recite Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. 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 None. Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Om Mani Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Mani Padme Hum Shri. Mani Padme Hum Shri. Om 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 Mani Om Shri Om Mani Padme Om Shri Om Mani Padme Om Shri Om Ni Padme Shri Om Mani Padme Om Shri Om Mani Padme Shri Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Om Shri Om Mani Padme 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 Om Shri Om Ni Padme Om Shri Om Mani 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 Padme Om Om Mani Padme. Om Shri. Yeah. If you got your books handy, please turn to page 200 and 211. Recite Om Ah Hom.
Mm.
May the fields of the five elements not arise as a
Arise as a
hostile
hostile
force.
force.
May I see them as the
see them
fields
as
of
the
the
fields of
five
the five
Buddhas.
Buddhas.
May
May
the elements of space not arise as a hostile force.
force.
May I see them
May I
as the
see them as
field
the
of the
field
blue
of the blue
Buddha.
Buddha.
May the elements of water not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the white Buddha. May the elements of earth not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the yellow Buddha. May the elements of fire not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the red Buddha. May the elements of wind not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the green Buddha. May the awesome sounds, lights, and rays not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field, infinite fields of the peaceful and wrathful, fierce deities. May the rainbow-colored elements not rise up as a hostile force. May I see them as the fields of the manifold Buddhas. May I recognize all sounds as my own sounds. May I recognize all lights as my own lights. May I recognize all rays as my own rays. May I spontaneously recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. May the fields of the three Buddha bodies be manifest. When my life's course is ended and I roam alone in the intermediate states, the loved ones of this world can no longer help me. So at this critical time, may the conquerors, the peaceful and wrathful, fierce deities quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the deep darkness of my ignorance be dispelled. When I roam alone, separated from my loved ones, and myriad images of emptiness arise, naturally manifesting, may the Buddhas quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate state be annulled. When the five radiant lights of pristine cognition dawn, may I recognize them as my own nature, and without awe and without terror, and as the manifold forms of the peaceful and wrathful fierce deities arise, may I be fearlessly confident and recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. And now please go to page 218. 218. Through the compassion of Samantabhadra and the infinite and wrathful fierce deities, by the power of the truth of pure reality, and by the blessing of the mantrams who practice one-pointedly, may every wish of this aspirational prayer be fulfilled. Om Mani Padme Hong Shri. Om Ah Hong. Om Ah Hong. Om Ah Hong. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. And on page 219, Mangala Shri Vala Zampu Pipa Alankar Bhavantu. By the virtue of this Dharma work, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and attain enlightenment. Mangalas Sarva Mangalam. May all beings and
beings and
activities be
activities
auspicious
auspicious
for the benefit
for the
of the
benefit and
enlightenment of all
enlightenment of
such.
all sentient beings.
Thank you all very much for your patience and conversation, interest, work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lynn.
you.
Next
Thank
week,
you
we'll
so
get
much.
back. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Next week, we'll get back into
Nice.
the text a little bit more.
Tim George, I had a question for you.
Certainly.
It's not related to this discussion at all. I sent a check to Geshe Larampa and it hasn't been cashed. I sent it a couple weeks ago.